Muted everybody. Whosoever wants to talk can unmute himself. Ajit, please stop sharing your screen, please. Yeah. Samir, can you take over? Samir Padye. Hello, Samir. Please take over.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So, first of all, very, very informative and thank you for the presentation, Ajit. This is really a topic right now that is definitely hot as well as growing for a number of years. First question is posed, which is related to the device itself. What can we do from the design aspect perspective to make sure that these devices can be future proof? For example, that the devices we are making right now can run these algorithms for next 5, 10 years. Certainly the old hardware is not capable of. So what is being done, or what is your thought on future proofing some of these edge devices?
Yes, that is actually a very good question, and we are
Who
working
has
on
asked
this.
the question? Who has asked the question?
That's asked by Phil.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can see the last name. Yeah.
Okay, Phil. Okay.
Okay. Okay, Phil.
Ajit, please take
Thank you.
over.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the question here is the old devices, the legacy devices are called a name called brownfield devices. Yes. So there is greenfield devices and brownfield devices. Brownfield devices are ones which are typically older devices, and the question is how do we make them foolproof? Now, many of these devices can run through a gateway device. Yes, so what you do typically is that you have some kind of a gateway device which connects to all the smaller sensors and you work with that. Now, people in the Internet of Things world do take a longer term view of devices. For example, if you're putting something under the ground or on a pipeline or inside something, then it has to last at least 10 or 20 years. So in that sense, this problem at the moment is already done quite a few times with this. So I know there is an echo, but I think I can't help that because
Somebody has unmuted himself or herself. Please unmute. Please mute everybody.
so if you mute
Okay, Ajit, carry
everybody,
on.
I will unmute myself. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Fine. So I am still unmuted. So there is still a thing. So what I was saying with that is that we always have this problem to have edge devices and older devices, but in many cases they can be handled through gateway. So this is my short answer to Phil's question. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. Samir Padye. Okay. I think Ajit ji, uh, Samir, are there
Hello.
any other questions?
Yes,
Yes, yes. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of questions here actually.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think on the
Okay.
chat, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So and Ajit, if you can see the questions or if you want to answer them directly, that's
Yeah,
fine
sure,
as well.
sure, sure, sure.
Yeah.
I can do that then. I'll start
Yeah.
to work backwards from the beginning there.
And
Okay.
everybody, please stay mute. Only let
Yeah, yeah.
Ajit's microphone be on.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So the model runs on the edge device isn't the model footprint. This is from Shailesh Ambradekar. So model runs on the edge device. Isn't the model footprint huge and the model execution resource intensive? Especially wondering what kind of resources are available in the Alexa Google speaker. So this is a good question again. So the question is the model execution huge? Yes, this is, because what is happening nowadays is that these models are getting more and more complex. If you look at the things like GPT-3, which is the new brainchild, everybody is talking about it from OpenAI, those models are becoming very huge. However, I think that is where you need the skill for that. So typically, this is where you need people who are effectively someone who, like what I do, is that what you're trying to do is compress that model into a very small space and also do every other type of training mechanism and so on and so forth, so that you reduce the footprint of the model to very small devices, very small things. I do not know the exact capability of Alexa or Google, but I think that they are again quite hefty devices. I think that the capability of the devices is not such a big problem. The bigger problem is the footprint of the size of the model, as you have rightly pointed out. But my response to that is the size of the model is becoming better through better learning of AI. Okay, so thank you very much. So this question is from Vedas. The model on the edge device, as Dr. Ajit said, is pre-trained model, correct? Yes, it does not have enough bandwidth. Question of drifting to, okay, that is fine. So this is the response. You have something else to say? Yeah, so this is right. So this is exactly what I was saying, that it's a pre-trained model. Quite often there is something called transfer learning, which happens within there. So what happens is, I did mention transfer learning a bit. So you take a pre-trained model and you only train the last few layers of that. So this is what typically happens in convolution neural networks with Inception V3 and all those models. So you don't start from zero. It's like you build on somebody else's work and talk on top of that. So this very much I agree with what Mr. Vedas is saying. So Phil, how does transfer learning work without defeating the bandwidth saving business case? So the transfer learning idea is what I mentioned to you, is working on the cloud, not on the edge device typically. So you're training on the cloud. You take something like Inception V3 or something like this from Google, and you train the last few layers of the model so that you are able to create a new model within there. So this is typically happening on the cloud, and then you push it on the edge device within there. So I now so that covers Phil's question, hopefully. And then thank you very much, Ashwin. Thank you, Nana Sahib. Will you please allow to ask directly? Okay, yes, okay. Share. Okay, so my details are on the slides. I will share my slides with Anand, and Anand can share it with the participants. This is not a problem. Can others mute? Okay, that's just fine. Echo. Okay, this is cool. There's a big echo in the background. Yeah. Okay. 1 minute. I'm just scrolling down here. Okay, very complex subject and very explained. Yes, thank you very much again. Okay, so the question from Bhushan is, make the model accessible via APIs so the devices can consume? Yes. So this is the big thing at the moment, with this putting APIs around some of these devices. And that is typically the same problem as you are looking in traditional IT. So when we talked about this Garje Marathi session, one of the things we did in the end was put it in a simple Flask API, meaning that you put a REST API around it, and then you make it accessible just like any other piece of software. Yes, so AI is very complex, but from your perspective, from a third-party perspective, it is a simple API where you give something and you get something back in return. Yes, so this is how it works. So can you speak a little bit more about GPT-3? Yeah, so GPT-3 is the big thing at the moment. So GPT-3, do not know about it, is that it is this natural language processing algorithm, which is taking a lot of very interesting things. So GPT-3 is a generative algorithm, meaning that it is helping to create different things. For example, people are creating their own SQL queries using NLP and so on and so forth. The thing about GPT-3 is that it is a very well trained model, meaning that it has put a lot of resources on the training side, and in doing so, it is very powerful. GPT-3 uses the equivalent of transfer learning. So it is using something called transformers. Transformers have been around a little bit more before GPT-3. So GPT-2 and BERT from Google is based on the transformer model, but transformer model is very similar to the classic transfer learning model in CNNs. Sorry, I'm going a little bit fast, but I think I'm trying to cover all these questions. Some of these questions are very technical. I think the people who are asking quick to understand my description as well, but this is what is happening with GPT-3. So I think GPT-3 will be very interesting, but it isn't everything, meaning that there are also many discriminative applications where you're trying to do classification of text and so on and so forth. And those typically are not about GPT-3. GPT-3 is generative, meaning that it is generating new things, it is generating SQL queries, it's generating bodies of text and so on and so forth. So this is my view of GPT-3. I think it is a huge innovation. By the way, it is not fully available yet. Yes, even you have to be on that waiting list. As far as I know, most people are still on the waiting list. Not many people have been actually granted access to this one. So what is the role of blockchain in AI and IoT? Now, this blockchain thing, I haven't kept much in touch with blockchain. Blockchain is a way to connect IoT devices, some people say. But from my point of view, it is still an emerging area. I don't have a full answer to this, partly because it is not an expert. I'm not much of an expert on blockchain. I'm, of course, very well familiar with the other two, but not with blockchain. Can you comment on the AI as a service? Is it going to get, so this is a question from Ashwin. So can you comment on AI as a service? Is it going to get standardized practice in IoT world as well? So yes, I think the world of AI as a service will be quite a common thing at the moment. Partly because most of the things, as there was a previous comment from Bhushan, will be in the form of some sort of an API. And in fact, you're seeing that GPT-3 is a classic bit of that. Yes, so it is a classic API, which has got a very huge model trained behind it. But the actual what it is doing is very simple. Yes, you can see, you can get a simple API, you give it something, it returns something back. So this whole idea of AI as a service is very strong. Also, the cloud is driving this model. Of course, the drawback of AI as a service is the price. Yes, because there is always a trade-off between these two things. And of course, that if you get the cloud provider to do all the work, then of course that the cloud provider has some cost. There is also a switching cost. Switching cost meaning that some typically once you get very close to a specific cloud provider, sometimes it's not very easy to switch to another provider. So this whole idea of a service is very interesting, but it has plus and minus sides. So thank you for answering the query. Yes, thank you, Satish. Thank you for that. How frequently do we have to train our model so that we can deploy it on an edge device? It may help in condition-based maintaining for industrial IoT very much needed. Yeah, this is a question from Gaurav. So how frequently do you have to train your model? So this is a very important question. And as I mentioned to you, you do have to retrain the model because the big thing about AI is that AI can fail silently. Yes, when I wear the words fail, use the word fail silently. It means that AI can return an answer, but the answer may not be correct because the data may have shifted. So you have the data drift. So the frequency of training really depends on your business case. But I mentioned to you this idea of DevOps. So I don't know how technical you are, but I think you are kind of asking that question. So I will say that what it is doing CI/CD on IoT on edge devices. So what you're doing is you are doing the typical CI/CD phase, and you're doing model evaluation, and then you are retraining back within that. So this is the bit where the whole DevOps architecture is meeting the whole IoT architecture, and the fact that it is running on the edge devices is kind of by the by. This is exactly what we are covering in Oxford as well. So we are combining this whole idea of CI/CD and edge, and then you have to retrain, you have to do the model evaluation and come back and retrain your model and push it. Ideally, this should happen automatically. Yes, so what should happen is that your condition, you should set up a condition saying that your model should be evaluated at a certain time. Once you see the model, you see that it has drifted from what you wanted it to be, then you will retrain the model and push it back to the edge device. Yes, so the whole process the whole cycle will start again, and you should be able to do that. So this is in response to Gaurav's question. Yeah, I hope that's okay. When the model is on the edge, how do we collect information to determine if the model is drifting over time? So this is the sort of question from Narote, and this again is the same sort of a thing which I responded to the previous one, is that you are doing this whole CI/CD cycle on edge devices, meaning that you are collecting it, you are automatically retraining the model, and you are setting a threshold in which you are constantly re-evaluating the model. And ideally, you are doing this automatically, yes, rather than manually. So if you are running on a very small setup, then people don't do that. But when you have very large setups, large companies, they always deploy an architecture which was on one of my slides, the one from Microsoft, where you put everything in a container and everything is pushed onto edge devices, and you monitor those models automatically and you push it back. If you have a question about this, you can contact me directly. I think then I can answer you more about that question. I didn't go much into this because I know this is the wide audience and there's no point talking about DevOps because it might not be for everybody. So what are the programming languages used in AI and edge devices? So in the case of AI and edge devices, the programming models are the same as everything else. So typically in AI at the moment, the programming languages are typically Python, or and that means it is TensorFlow and Keras, which is coming from Google, or it could be PyTorch, which is coming from Facebook and NVIDIA and all those devices. So I think that nowadays the programming language is not so important when it comes to the AI side of the world, because I think that most of them are very similar. The exception to this is how close you go to the hardware. Yes. So for example, if you start to run things like FPGA, which is Field Programmable Gateway Array, which means you're almost going down right to the gates, which Intel is talking about, or then at that point, you're starting to look definitely into C++ or something like that. Yes. But then otherwise, you can do most of the things with Python, partly because the devices are pretty strong nowadays. But if you go very close to the hardware, you possibly need C++. This is an answer to Praful's question. The question from Mahesh: your views on evolution in the marketplace for AI algorithms. So in my view of the evolution in marketplace on AI algorithms is that most of the world, so you are talking about AI, not AI on edge. Yes. So in this case, my view is that most doing classification problems. This means if you look at typical things like Kaggle, you're doing things like XGBoost and those sort of algorithms, which are classic classifiers. There's a big focus nowadays on unsupervised learning, which means all these things like reinforcement learning is a separate type of algorithm. You have GANs, you have much more sort of algorithms coming along like that. But typically, people are still doing some form of classification, and that means it is mostly some form of classic XGBoost or random forest or stuff like that. So in many cases, the innovation in algorithms is coming towards things such as generative adversarial networks and unsupervised learning, as opposed to typically sort of classic algorithms within that. I
Okay.
hope that answers your question,
Yeah.
Mahesh.
I
So
think you have covered all the questions. All the questions. Thanks a lot. Is there any
I think
question?
I got a few more if you want. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
We have time. I thought it was covered. Anyway, carry on,
No.
please. Carry.
I'm just maybe there's just someone saying thank you, but I'll just quickly go
Yeah.
through.
The last
Uh,
thing is to me. When will I see the questions, next programs and all? Anyway.
yeah. Okay. So give me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll give you another 2 minutes. Yeah, couple of
Oh,
minutes.
please, please, please.
Perfect. Yeah. How do I get notification on coming events? Oh, that's fine. I think that is
That's what I
definitely fine.
answered. I answered that. Yeah.
Okay. So these are for you then. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
So
So
okay, there is a question from Deshpande. Do you think that the current edge devices need to be replaced frequently? Uh, yes, there is this thing happening with edge devices being replaced with that, but I think that it depends on what you mean by replaced and what application they are in with that. Okay, I think that is covering everything now. The
yeah.
rest starts with you. So thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody. Please feel free to also ask me questions offline, and I'll share my slides as well with you. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It was an excellent presentation, and you also answered each and every question in a very nice manner. I would like to tell every presenter that you please share details about Garje Marathi Innovation Academy initiative with your contacts. This program is a series of lectures which we have been running for last 3 months and which will continue up to the end of January. Is a precursor of Garje Marathi Innovation Incubation Academy's Incubation Acceleration Program. Our Prime Minister Modi has said that artificial intelligence can play a crucial role in developing solutions in agriculture, creating next generation urban infrastructure, as well as for making disaster management systems. So our Indian government is giving high importance to AI, and we are working in that to invite young entrepreneurs as well as students to get acquainted with AI and use the knowledge of our experts, which can be applicable in various fields in India as a startups as well as an educational career. With this, I would say it was an excellent program. Thank you everybody for attending this, and thank you Ajit ji. You have been always a great mentor and great guide.
Thank you.
Many people have benefited because of your expertise. With this, I take your permission to end this program. Um Thanks a lot. May I end the program, sir?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Thanks,
Okay.
Ravindra. Thanks, Samir
Thank-
Padye.
Okay.
Thanks, Sandeep
Thank
Padye,
you.
who is our board of director member, and Samir Ketkar, and everybody who is present. Have a nice
Thank you.
day. Have a nice weekend. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye. Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you
Prabhu.
all. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks everyone. It was great.
Ganu sir,
Say thank you.
hello Ganu sir.
Bye, Samir.